Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Oh, it's good exercise, Bert. Yeah. There you go. Hi. It's okay. Go ahead. Where'd you go? Where's he going to speak in the middle? In the middle, I think. There's so many cars. Oh, it's crazy. And it's still bad. Half the people are not going to make it. But he has to see it change. So you missed the turn on? Way up.
That was okay. That was okay. How is everybody doing so far tonight? That was much better. A couple little housekeeping things for everybody before we get started. The heat has been turned off. It was really cold when we got here a few hours ago, but thanks to the body heat, it's turned up a little bit. So I've turned the heat off. Now I'm sure all of you have seen the traffic coming in. So we are going to push things down a little bit because our star of the evening is getting in. He is rolling into Spruce Mills as we speak, but we want to give him a couple minutes to get in and settled and let everybody get in as best as we can. So we are going to start very soon, but I just want to let everybody know that we have turned the heat off. The concessions are going to be closed once we start, so if you want a water or something like that, please grab that as soon as possible. And then we'll be starting here in 5 or 10 minutes at the very most. Thanks, everybody. No? No? Thank you, everybody, for your patience. How are you doing? Well, I want to welcome you to the beautiful riding of Foothills, Alberta. Thank you very much for coming. How are you doing tonight? My name is John Barlow. I'm a member of Parliament for Foothills. This is my riding, and I'm very proud to have you here with us tonight. And I will be your MC for this evening. Before we get started, I want to introduce some very special guests who we have with us tonight, who also made the trip out to Foothills riding in Calgary and area. And I'm going to take a little time to introduce some of my friends. I've got Glenn Motts here from Medicine Hat, Cardston Manor. Len Weber, the Member of Parliament for Calgary Confederation.
You couldn't get us upstairs?
Pat Kelly, the MP for Calgary Rocky Ridge. Blake Richards, the MP from Banff Airdrie. Thanks very much for coming, you guys. But we also have a few other special guests for you to be with us today. Now, first, I would like to introduce our hostess, Miss Marg Southern. Thank you very much for coming. This is such a beautiful venue. We're so happy to be here with you today. Thank you so much for having us. It really means a lot to ourselves and Pierre and his team. We also have a couple of other very special guests. Patrick Poilievre, Pierre's brother, is with us tonight. And Marlene Poilievre, Pierre's mom, is here with us tonight. Mom, maybe you should be running. You got a pretty nice reaction there. Now, folks, I know you're really excited to have our keynote speaker up here tonight, and I am too. I am very excited and very enthusiastic to have Pierre Poilievre running for the leadership of our party, but most importantly, the next Prime Minister of Canada. Now, we are breaking a record with the turnout that we've had here tonight. Incredible. We had 2,000 people in Kelowna late last week. I thought that's going to be kind of tough to beat. You guys blew the doors off. Thank you so much. Now, we all want Pierre to be the next Prime Minister of our country, but there's one thing that kind of stands in the way of that. To ensure that that happens, we need to make sure that all of you have a membership in the Conservative Party of Canada and vote for Pierre when the mail ballots come out this summer. Who here has a membership in the CPC? Put your hand up. This is going to be embarrassing. Who does not? This is kind of like being at a Flames game with some Oilers fans there, but it's not too late. Those of you who are brave enough to put up your hand, and I appreciate that you did that, grab your phone right now. Go to pierre4pm.ca and buy your membership right now. Hold up your phone after you do that and show us the receipt, show us your membership, and hold it up there for when Pierre gets on stage so he can see the energy and the enthusiasm and those who have come here tonight to support Pierre Poilievre and to support Pierre's campaign to be the next Prime Minister. Now, I have a very special friend here that's going to introduce Pierre. Now, we've had some amazing MPs join our team in the last couple of elections. Now, I know we all wanted to win. We didn't win, but there are some positives. Some positives are the people that we have added. We have won the popular vote in the last two elections, and because of that, we've added some great MPs. And the next fellow that I'm going to invite up here is a rock star. He's going to be a huge part of the next Conservative government. Jasraj Shalon, the Calgary MP for Calgary Forest Lawn, our Shadow Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Mr. Shalon. Wow, Calgary, give yourselves a round of applause for proving why Calgary is the best city in the world. We are so honored to join you all today in this incredible movement sweeping Canada from coast to coast to coast of Canadians uniting behind the man that needs no introduction, Pierre Poilievre. Thank you, John. Thank you. Pierre Poilievre. A round of applause. This piece of heaven we found, Rocky Mountains and black fertile ground, everything we need's under that big blue sky. I'm proud to be Alberta born, Alberta bred, and Alberta bound. Thank you very much, Alberta. This is not only my hometown, this is my home neighborhood. Anybody here from Shaughnessy? That's where I grew up, right over on Shaughnessy Drive. Not far away. First job, delivering the Calgary Sun. You can applaud the Calgary Sun. It's not the CBC. Right? Went to Janet Johnstone. And then over, anybody from Janet Johnstone? Henry Wisewood? Robert Warren? Yeah, listen, and furthermore, I have a little bit of experience here at this site. I don't know if I should tell this to the Southern family, but when we were kids growing up in Shaughnessy, we used to ride our bikes on the gravel roads over here and sneak onto the property and tear around on the horse jumping site. I even think Nancy caught me a few times. She pulled up in her pickup truck and told us that we had to skedaddle. But those were good adventurous days. Back then, Shaughnessy was the end of the universe. You remember that? Didn't go any further. It was Shaughnessy, and then you were in Okotoks. There was nothing in between. And I had my very first political job working for a member of parliament in Forest Lawn. So I used to take the 52 from Shaughnessy to Anderson Station, which was then the southernmost station, go all the way downtown, switch trains, then go all the way to Forest Lawn, get on another bus, an hour and 45 minutes each way. My dad bought me a used pair of dress shoes and a used suit, and he tied a funny tie on me, and I worked every day in the summer, I think of 1996, and made $600 a month. Best job I ever had. And of course, my mother's here. My mother, Marlene Poilievre. She's got a hat here, everybody. What do you think? You like that? This is from my very first campaign. My mother still lives in the family home over on Shaughnessy Drive. And my brother Patrick is here as well. Patrick, hold up for Patrick Poilievre. Yeah, we got our start sort together in a lot of ways, and we were both born of an unwed teenage mother who put us up for adoption because her mother had passed away, and we were blessed to be adopted by two school teachers, my father Don, my mother Marlene, who are here today. They gave us our start in life, and you know, it really, that experience, when someone was asking me the other day, what's the nicest thing anyone ever did for you? The answer, of course, was when my parents adopted me. You can't do anything better than that, right? And what it taught me is that the greatest compassion comes not from the heavy hand of the state, but from the loving hands of families and volunteers and community, right? And that's what Alberta is really all about, small government and big citizens.
free people, doing good for one another, living in tolerance and peace and love with one another. That is the dream that brought so many waves of immigrants to this land. Whether you've been here for 300 years as a family or 300 days as a new refugee, we all came here for exactly the same reason, isn't it? Not for free stuff, but for freedom, right? Freedom. Especially in the prairies. Our ancestors came here to carve a little piece of paradise out of that big, cold patch of land called Western Canada. Way back then, when the immigration minister Clifford Sifton advertised this part of the country all across Europe to attract new immigrants, he actually called it God's country, because it was such a beautiful place with endless possibility. And they told you, we won't give you anything except a piece of land. You can break it in, you can work hard, and you can start a life, and you can pass something better on to your kids than you inherited from your parents. And back then, someone asked the great Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier, what is Canada's nationality? And of course, that was a complicated question to ask a Canadian Prime Minister already, because if you were in Europe, it would be easy. You'd answer based on ethnicity. Scotland, it's Scottish, France, French, etc. But here we already were mixed up. We had the First Peoples, we had the Scots, the Irish, the French, countless others were already here in this country, so you could not define our nationality on ethnicity. So instead, he said, Canada is free and freedom is its nationality. And so it is today. Freedom is our nationality. Freedom, the freedom to think, speak, work, build a family, and live a life. The freedom to give more to others voluntarily through charity. My mother does a lot of charity, actually. She helps with seniors' homes, who are people who are isolated. And when I came to town recently, she said she wanted me to come visit the seniors, that I was going to be a big star if I did. So I went over and walked in the front door, and I said to a lady, do you know who I am? She said, no, but if you ask the nurse, she'll tell you who you are. Good to be granted, isn't it? Jazzraz stays grounded by doing a lot of door knocking. He's a relentless door knocker. The problem is his team cannot get him to stop. So the night comes, and the people are starting to go to bed, and Jazz keeps knocking on doors. His team says, Jazz, eventually you're going to start waking people up and lose votes. He says, no, I've got to keep going. 9 o'clock, 9:30. Finally, they get to this big dark house. Lights are off. And his team says, Jazz, don't do it. It's over. Go to bed. He says, one more door. If I lose this election by one vote, I'll never be able to live with myself. So he goes up to the door, knocks, baby's crying. Lady opens the door, says, you, sir, are in big trouble. You just woke up my triplet 1-year-olds. Not only that, my husband is a 300-pound boxer, and he's going to come down and have a word with you. And Jazz says, that won't be necessary. I'm just going to move along. Just tell him that his local Liberal candidate dropped by to say hello. He's quick, eh? Very quick. The great thing about door knocking, it's actually quite a revolutionary idea. Throughout the ages, the citizens had to go before the government and beg for goodwill. But the great thing about door knocking is it flips that org chart upside down. It forces us to be the servants. The people are the masters. It's kind of a revolutionary concept, isn't it? You know, the citizen is the master, the politician is the servant. We have to show up for a job interview, right? In order to get hired. It's a good way to remind people who's really boss in a democracy. They call it the House of Commons for a reason. That's why it's green in there, because the first commoners met in the fields of England, right? The commoners rule the crown. Everyone is under the force of the law. Liberty under the law is an 800-year-old tradition that goes back to the Magna Carta of 1215. But you know what? It is constantly under threat. It needs to be renewed and upheld, never from above, but from below, a bottom-up effort by the democratic people to take back control of their country, to take back control of their lives, and to restore freedom. That's why we're here. But lately, people haven't felt so free in this country, have they?
No.
Whether it's the 14-year-old girl suffering depression after separation from her sporting and social activities for 2 long years, whether it is the waitress who mortgaged her house to start a business only to have it locked down again and again until she couldn't open it up anymore, whether it is the hardworking trucker who delivered the goods and services that we needed when we needed them. Who delivered goods and services across the border every single day without a vaccine for 2 years. And suddenly, Justin Trudeau suggested that he was going to spread a virus, even though that same trucker is all alone, all by himself in the cab of his truck all day long. He feels like he's lost control of his life. And when he stood up and spoke out and raised his voice in peaceful and democratic protest, he was called a criminal by people like Justin Trudeau and Jean Charest. Ladies and gentlemen, people feel like they're losing control of their lives because big bossy government has taken advantage of the pandemic and used it as an excuse to attack people's freedom and expand the power of the state. And that is why we as a conservative team are going to continue to fight tooth and nail to put a permanent end to the vaccine mandates, the vaccine passport, and restore our freedom right across the country. But it's not just our medical freedom that has been under attack. Think about our economic freedom. Think of the single mother who's skipping meals so that her kids don't have to, because food inflation now means that 4 in 5 families have cut the quantity or quality of their diet just so that they can afford to pay for it. Or the working guy who can't afford to drive to work with $1.60 a liter gas. Or the 32-year-old forced to live in his mom's basement because he can't afford the price of a house after home values have doubled in just 7 years. You know, I was in Vancouver just the other day and I asked, you are a 32-year-old living in your mom's basement. How do you even bring home a date? It's a logistical question. And a lady shouted out from the audience, very carefully. But seriously, think about what it does to the personal independence of a young couple. You can't build up credit history, collateral, or home equity for a future retirement if you're stuck living at home. There's a couple living in a trailer park 5 minutes from my Ottawa home, and they make $100,000 working at a quarry. Now, they have calculated that not only can they not leave the trailer park today, but at the current trajectory, they will never be able to afford a home. The aggregate that they pull out of that quarry is used to make the foundations of houses. When the people who build our homes can no longer afford to live in them, our economic system is fundamentally unjust. But why is it happening? What has caused this out of control inflation that has attacked the paychecks of our working class? Just inflation, right? Just inflation. And what's behind that? Well, Trudeau government has created $400 billion of brand new cash out of thin air in the last 2 years. 1 in every $5 in the economy today was created since 2020. More dollars chasing fewer goods always equals higher prices. If you have an economy with 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's $1 a loaf. You double the number of dollars to $20, all of a sudden it's $2 for a loaf of bread, right? Very simple. More dollars chasing fewer goods equals higher prices. But when government creates cash, it doesn't just dump it out of airplanes onto the population equally. It pumps it into the financial and banking system by buying government bonds and other financial assets. So the first people to touch all that cash are those with the greatest access to the financial system. No wonder the gap between rich and poor is growing out of control. Their assets inflate in value. If you're a millionaire mansion owner, you just got a lot richer all of a sudden as the value of your assets went up. All you had to do was sit back on your big, fat assets and get richer, right? Meanwhile, purchasing power of the working people is diminished. You think about it this way. Your dollar is worth 50 cents today based on its purchasing power of real estate over the last 7 years. You took a dollar in 2015 and converted it today into its purchasing power for a home. It's worth 50 cents. That is literally what inflation does. It cuts the value of your loonie. You know, it reminds me of King Henry VIII. He not only is known for cutting off the heads of his citizens, but clipping off the edges of the British pound. It was a pound of silver, but he kept running out of silver because he couldn't control his spending. So he'd clip off the edges and melt down those edges to make more pounds. And that's what inflation does today. It clips off the edge of your coin. 5.7% inflation last month means 5.7% of your loonie was clipped off, and along with the purchasing power. And so the working class wages buy less, and the super rich get richer. They're taking from the have-nots to give to the have-yachts in this country. That's what's happening when they create all of this cash, right? And so what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to counter just inflation with common sense. Sense spelled C-E-N-T-S, right? Common sense. One, we're going to ban the Bank of Canada from printing cash to pay for politicians' spending. And replace it with a very simple mandate. The money supply should be determined by what is necessary to keep prices stable and low. No more inflation, no more giving money to the rich and to the politicians. Protect the purchasing power of our money through a strong, sound money policy. Two, we're going to bring down the cost of everything by axing the consumer carbon tax. And three, we're going to get rid of the wasteful spending that has made all this money printing necessary in the first place, right? Trudeau doubled the size of the national debt. He's increased spending exponentially. Spending is up 25% over what it was in just 2019. So there's some very low-hanging fruit, my friends. His $100 billion slush fund, gone. Yeah. His multi-billion-dollar infrastructure bank, which exists only to provide loan guarantees and profit protections to corporations and to give bonuses to undeserving executives, gone. Yeah. And I want to get your thoughts on this one. The $1 billion we're wasting on the CBC, gone. Defund the CBC, 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 defund the CBC. There you go. That was the funnest $1 billion we ever saved, isn't it? That's right. Thank you very much. And we're going to give people more freedom over their own money, right? Well, the government doesn't have to have a monopoly on the cash we use. People should have the freedom to choose other forms of money. You know, some years ago, after the bankers and politicians destroyed the financial system in the United States of America, a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto designed a system called Bitcoin, right? We've got a few Bitcoin fans in the audience today. Very simple idea. The money would not be controlled by any bank or any government. It's simply controlled by all the people who choose to be on the network, and all of the updates to the ledger of that money are made through consensus of all of those people who are around the world, don't know each other, and therefore can't conspire to manipulate it. It takes the control of cash out of the hands of the government or any central authority and lets the people decide for themselves. Now, obviously, these kinds of new concepts are going to be risky, and no one should put their life savings into any such thing. But what we should do is continue to have a free market where people can choose which money they use. I actually used it to buy a shawarma when I was in London, Ontario the other day. It was delicious. Now, are there any retailers in the audience today? Anybody in the retail business over here? Put up your hand. How much do you pay on every transaction when you to the credit card company when someone buys? What percent? I heard 3, I heard 2. When I bought this sandwich with Bitcoin, the network charge was 0.06 cents on an $11 sandwich. So that's what happens when you take out the middleman, right? It's time that we give people the freedom to take back control of their money away from politicians and bankers. You know, instead of creating more cash, why don't we create more of what cash buys, right? Grow more food, build more houses, and produce more responsible Canadian energy. Back to that simple analogy. If you have an economy with 10 loaves of bread and $10, and instead of doubling the number of dollars, you double the number of loaves of bread. Right? You got 20 loaves of bread now and $10. Well, now each loaf of bread costs 50 cents. And what do you know? Our money actually goes further when we make stuff and produce things instead of just creating cash out of thin air. So how are we going to do that? Well, it starts with removing the gatekeepers. Right? You know about the gatekeepers. They're the ones that stand in the way and block other people. They stand at their gate and say, no, you can't come any further. There's only a privileged few that are allowed on this side of the fence. The rest of you can just suffer over there. We see it again and again, the gatekeepers who block our immigrants from working in the very professions and trades for which they were trained, denying them the ability to get a permit to work. How many of you here don't have a family doctor? Just put up your hands. Anybody? Right. And we have thousands of hardworking and brilliant immigrants that are trained doctors but can't get licenses because local gatekeepers prevent them from getting it, right? How many of you have a hard time getting a plumber or someone to come and fix your roof? Meanwhile, we have many immigrants that can't get licenses to practice in the trades, even though they are fully qualified for the job. A Poilievre government will use immigration support funds that we already transfer to the provinces as leverage to require provinces mandate that these employment bodies give faster licenses and give a full answer to any immigrant applying to work in their field within 60 days of applying. And we will insist upon a merit-based system so that people are approved based on what they can do, not where they studied, so that we can have more doctors, more engineers, more tradespeople, more Canadians making big inflation-proof paychecks for all of us. We're going to remove the gatekeepers. We're going to remove the gatekeepers that prevent people from having homes. I was in Vancouver, as I was saying the other day, you in Vancouver today, the cost of government regulation in every single house is $644,000. That's the delays, the fees, the lawyer fees, the accountants, and the lobbyists you have to hire in order to get approved with a building permit. So I went up to this house. It's a little old house built probably about 50 years ago. I wanted to find the most outrageous price. 1,000 square feet in Vancouver, and it cost $4.8 million to buy the house. Now, in fairness, the realtor told us you can tear it down. You can build 2 triplexes on the same lot. Okay, that's great. Let's do a little bit of math. $4.8 million divided by 6 units. 800, good mathematician out there. $800,000 for each one of those units. That's for the privilege of living in a triplex, and that's just the land. You have to get it approved. You have to, let's say with the approvals and with the labor and the material, you're looking at $1.3 million to live in a triplex. Now think about this for a second. That little shack was originally built half century ago. And it was probably purchased by a welder, a truck driver, or a bus driver. And probably they paid for it with a single income. That's the way it was back then. Isn't it strange that 50 years ago, a family could afford that house and that land with a single working class income? And today, even when you slice and dice that land into 6 different pieces, the 6 families cannot afford to live on it. I thought the deal in Canada was we were supposed to do a little bit better than our parents, that each generation was supposed to be better off than the one that came before us. But the gatekeepers are preventing that from happening. They're hoarding opportunity by preventing new construction. So a Poilievre government is going to take this on head on. We know what big city politicians care about, spending money. No, they won't get any more infrastructure money unless they speed up permits. The number of dollars in infrastructure increases will be tied to the number of completed housing units that come onto the market. Dan McLean is the local city councilor. He's applauding me right now. He's going to make it happen, everybody. What we're going to do is print less money, build more houses. That's how you make life more affordable. We're going to get the gatekeepers out of the way of our farmers by cutting back on the red tape and regulation of the CFIA that punishes our farmers and holds them back and drives up food costs. We're going to reduce their input taxes so it's more affordable to produce affordable and nutritious food here in our country. And we're going to remove the gatekeepers that have made us reliant on foreign oil in this country, aren't we? All these gatekeepers, including our Prime Minister, had a sudden epiphany since the war started in Ukraine, right? If the oil is not coming from Canada to pay Canadian paychecks, guess what? Surprise, it's going to dictators who are going to use that money to invade their neighbors. This hasn't led to environmental protection. It has simply redirected oil production from ethical countries like Canada to drive those dollars into the hands of people like Maduro in Venezuela and Putin in Russia. You know, if we had the Energy East pipeline today, we could take 1 million barrels of Western oil and ship it across the Atlantic. It's not just that we can't export our oil, we're actually buying oil from those same dictatorships. Do you know that we import 130,000 barrels of overseas oil to Canada every single day? Places like Saudi Arabia and Nigeria that have no environmental standards and that use the money to fund terrorism and other dictatorships, and they attack their own people with that cash. So here's the plan, folks. This is what we're going to do about it. 1, a Pierre Poilievre government will repeal the anti-energy law, Bill C-69. And we will repeal the ban on offshore shipping from North to West British Columbia by repealing C-48. We will remove the gatekeepers and open the Arctic Gateway by opening up direct lines to ship our oil from northern Alberta over to the northern coast at the port up there. We're going to ship oil around the Arctic in order to get over to the eastern markets in Canada. A port of Churchill is now indigenous owned. 28 indigenous communities have aligned themselves up in a consortium to build the rail line and the port itself. They're ready to take our product and we're going to ship it out another route. And we're going to clear the way for pipelines. I'm going to support pipelines south, north, east, west. We will build Canadian pipelines for Canadian steel. And there's a real simple solution for that oil we're putting in to the St. John refinery in New Brunswick. next door. The Newfoundlanders have a proposal to increase their daily production by 400,000 barrels a day. So a Poilievre government will grant permits for that to happen, so that those 400,000 barrels can replace the 130,000 barrels we get from overseas. And within 5 years, we will ban overseas oil to Canada altogether. You want to fight climate change? Well, here's an idea. Why don't we export more clean Canadian energy to replace foreign coal production, right? So we have 1,000 free. What, we got a chant one over here? I thought I heard a chant, but now they went quiet. What a Canadian audience. I think he's screaming we need some more pipelines. I think he's right about that. I agree with you, my friend. I hear you. We need more natural gas. We need more natural gas. We got 1,300 trillion cubic feet of the stuff right now. We don't believe in our feet. We have huge advantages. You know that the closest point to Asia in all of North America is British Columbia. The closest point to Europe in all of North America is Newfoundland. In other words, we have shipping advantages over the Gulf Coast. You know what other advantage we have? Well, you have to liquefy gas in order to ship it. Do you know how you liquefy a gas? You cool it down. What do we have lots of in Canada? Cold weather. It is our most abundant natural resource, cold weather. In fact, I was in Saskatchewan the other day. It was so cold, there were Liberals with hands in their own pockets. You like that one, Paul? Absolutely. Paul agrees. So, I'm told by the engineers, you could save actually 25% of the energy cost of liquefying natural gas by doing it in a cold climate. We have a 30-degree advantage. And so in Newfoundland, for example, they're going to pipe natural gas from the Jan Dark offshore oil field over to the shore, put it on a cooling vessel that will reduce it to minus 161 degrees Celsius and ship it off to Europe to break European dependence on Putin so that we can take dollars from dictators and turn it into paychecks for our people. We're going to remove the gatekeepers so that we can export more civilian-grade Saskatchewan uranium, one of the cleanest ways to generate emissions-free electricity is nuclear power. We have more of the raw resources than anyone else to do it. Removing the gatekeepers will also empower our First Nations communities who desperately want economic independence from the paternalism of the government in Ottawa. We will give our First Nations the ability to develop their resources, to develop home ownership models on reserve, and to welcome commerce and development so that they can have paychecks for their people and financial independence for their communities. That's what removing the gatekeepers can achieve for all of us, right? But we're also going to remove the gatekeepers who try to control our speech in this country, aren't we? The woke folk. Are there any woke folk in the audience here today? Not the woke people. You know these woke people? They're woke, but they're not awake, right? They love to divide everybody, right? They want to divide along racial, ethnic, gender, and now vaccination status. Every day they're looking for a new way to divide us and carve us up as a people, separate us from our neighbors, our friends, and our co-workers. Why do they do this? Why is it that Justin Trudeau, who has his own ugly past with racism, still likes to divide people along racial lines? Why is it that they do this? You got that right. It's divide and conquer. That's exactly what they're doing. They believe that if you and I do not trust our fellow citizens, that we're afraid of everyone who might be around the corner, then we'll turn to the almighty state to protect us, right? And he's dividing Canadians. You're right, young man. Who is this young man? What's your name? Come on over here. So what are you making us for dinner?
Hamburgers or fries?
Steaks, hamburgers, fries. He knows he's in Alberta, doesn't he? All right, well, I'm going to be coming out to test out your culinary arts at my next visit there, young man. But he's absolutely right. This Prime Minister seeks to divide us so that he can have more power for himself, right? But, you know, this is the difference between control and freedom. Control is a zero-sum game. If one person gets more control, then someone else has to get less control, right? There's only so much to go around. And that's why when government gets big and bossy and powerful, people start turning on each other. Can you remember a time when we've ever been this divided? East versus West, vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I can't remember a time when people were turning on each other in this way. But it is you're right, when his dad was Prime Minister, I remember I was a kid here in Alberta, and it was pretty bad then too, wasn't it? The same thing happened. Big, powerful, controlling government turned people against each other. Before Trudeau I, there was no separatist movement in Quebec. And all of a sudden it came alive. Before Trudeau II, separatism was dead in Quebec and not even spoken of in Alberta. And now that he's been in power for 7 years, we have 2 regions where there are separatist movements alive and well. Unfortunately, well, listen, I understand why you feel that. I understand the frustration of being a Western Canadian, feeling like your central government is attacking you. I get it. But I want to tell you something else. You have many friends right across this country who are on your side. I meet them every single day who believe in this country and who believe in all of its people, who want to build pipelines across the nation. The Energy East pipeline would have gone right through my riding, and 2/3 of my constituents were happy to support it right there in Ottawa. I want you to know that.
If it doesn't happen, we're gone.
And with Poilievre government, who's born and bred in Alberta, you will know that the era of calling Alberta and Western Canada to pay up and shut up will be over forever. We will make equalization program fair to Albertans. We will get rid of the federal carbon tax mandate and let the province of Alberta decide its best environmental policy. We will end the constant attacks on the law-abiding firearms owners and farmers in this province. We will give Albertans fair per capita representation in the House of Commons, and I will only appoint the senators that Albertans have elected. The West wants in under Poilievre government, the West will be in. And back to my earlier point on this point of control versus freedom. There's only a finite amount of control, so if one has more, others have less. Freedom is the opposite. If your neighbor has more freedom, that doesn't mean you have less, it means you have more. If you are a Muslim and you have more religious freedom, then your neighbor who's a Christian will have more religious freedom as well. If your local small business person has more economic freedom because we get rid of the unnecessary red tape, you as a consumer will have more freedom because you'll get to benefit from the lower prices he can offer you. And probably your kid will benefit from the job that the small businessman can create. In other words, freedom reinforces freedom. One person's benefit is another person's benefit. That's why freedom is actually a unifying principle. You know, when you walk into a coffee shop, you buy the coffee and you say thank you, what does the person say back to you behind the aisle, behind the, not you're welcome. They say thank you back. And why is that? Because they benefit more from the $2.50 you paid them than it costs them to give you the coffee. You benefit more from the coffee than the $2.50 you paid to get it. Everybody wins. If you have an apple and want an orange, and I have an orange and want an apple, we trade, we still have an apple and orange between us. And but we're both better off because each has something rewarding him than he had before. That's the miracle, the voluntary exchange for work, for wages, product for payment, investment for interest. Every single person must be better off or they would not do it, right? Because they're free to make that decision. Now, does. Even the good things it does by force. It forces that money out of your pocket through taxation. It's forced upon you. That's why nobody writes thank you on their tax forms, right? Right? So that's the difference. And you want to talk about compassion. There's nothing more compassionate than the entrepreneur. Why? Because he has to obsess about the interests and the needs of his customer, without whom he does not have a job. Without pleasing them, he cannot make money. He cannot get ahead unless he makes them better off. If you want to sell what John Smith buys, you have to see through John Smith's eyes. That is the miracle of the free enterprise system, and it is why in free economies and free countries, people are more united. And that is really what we're trying to do today. I started my journey here with all of you. And all of my values that I bring forward to Parliament Hill are those values with which you and I were raised. You are my neighbors. You are my people. This is where I come from. This is where my heart and my soul are. Mark Twain said the two most important days in a person's life are the day they were born and the day they find out why they were born. Why is the most important question that you should ask every single day. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I running for Prime Minister? I'm running for Prime Minister to make Canada the freest nation on earth so that you can take back control of your life. I'm doing this to make this a country where anybody who's prepared to work hard can fulfill their dreams, so that a young man can stand on this stage and pursue his dream of becoming a culinary artist and make the most delicious meats on earth, so that the young guy growing up on a First Nations reserve can dream of starting his own business and serving his own family, so that the newcomer from abroad can work as a doctor because he's trained as a doctor, and so that the adopted son of a teenage mother can dream of one day running for Prime Minister and serving his country and making his nation the freest on earth. That is why I'm running. And the words of the great John D. I am a Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, free to worship God in my own way, free to choose those who shall govern my country. It is this legacy of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and for all of mankind. Thank you.
Trying to get out of here, a couple little housekeeping notes. Pierre is going to try and take as many photos and as much meet and greet as he possibly can. If you are interested, please start lining up in that corner. You can see the partitions, the black ribbon that is there. You're going to come start over here, you're going to work your way across the black curtains, and we're going to be taking your photos and meet and greet at these black curtains. So if you want to start heading that direction, that is wonderful, but don't forget, we want Pierre to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. We need you to buy your CPC membership before June 3rd. Do not delay. If you haven't done it, do so tonight. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and we will see you